आपको जो दिल में लगता है, if you really want to do something without caring about the outcome, I think that's the most important perspective among all the many things that can be done at this point of time. For me, every day, the only thing that I'm most focused on is to make sure that I feel happy about the job that I'm doing. I try to make a positive difference. And most importantly, that positive difference should make an impact in people's lives. The most important is to remain calm. Because in great days, जब सब चीज़ें बहुत अच्छी चल रही हैं, even then making hasty decisions is bad. And on the other hand, when things are, when there are troubles, it's important to also remain calm. Because haste creates waste. So it's critical to enable that. So that's what has been my first focus, to be calm. When the fishermen can't go fishing to the sea, they repair their nets. So this is the time to repair our net, to make sure that if our customers are not getting a good experience in some forms, improve it, be the best for the customer when the world comes back. No matter how many times I am pushed back, or no matter how many times I fall down, I will stand up and go harder at the same aspiration than ever before. I won't give up. That's the one thing that I believe is an important skill set for entrepreneurs, saying there will be 100 people who will want to push you down, and there will be many reasons for it. But to the extent your heart is in a good place, you have right values and you have right intent, I think you can get back at it and get back to fighting. And I think that's the one thing that I'm focused upon.
Okay, how's it going? How's quarantine treating you?
This is of course something that you see once in a lifetime. So trying to deal with it at this point of time. This is probably one of those times where the longest I have remained home, for weeks and weeks. So trying to see through this period. But one of the positive effects has been I've grown my hair longer after a very long time, as I can see yours as well.
You know the pain of the brother. You know the pain of the brother. But how's your mental space, dude? Because honestly, entrepreneurship is one of those things, whatever stage you're at, it's one of those things that does definitely, for lack of a better word, suck the life out of you somewhere if you stay within the rut only. I would always tell every entrepreneur out there that you have to take that break every 3 to 6 months just to recharge, so that your creativity is recharged, so that your motivation is recharged. What's your mental space like right now? Are you recharged?
Yeah, look, in these periods, there is no choice but to be recharged. Look, these are really tough times for startups, entrepreneurs out there, especially the ones who are in the stage of building up their companies. I think to begin with, this is the time to also be responsible and take responsibility, take charge. I think for me at this point of time, the principle is "Jaan hai to jahan hai," which is what I hear a lot in regular discussions. And "Jaan hai to jahan hai" of customers, because हमारे customers, they are stuck in other cities, states, countries, and they all want a safe place. Our hotel owners are fighting it out on the front lines by serving frontliners, hospitals, so making sure that they are safe, making sure that our employees, even though these are tough times and we had to make some decisions of furloughs, how do we make sure that they keep getting enough amount of income to see through their lives? They have Medicare benefits. So trying to focus on monitoring the situation and ensuring that there is jaan hai to jahan hai for everybody around us, and being responsible in every way possible.
When you were starting out your journey, did you think that things would grow out this way? I'm not talking about COVID-19. We'll talk about that. But I'm talking about your life. Did you ever think that things will go so well? You're like 26, 27?
Yeah. No, I think when I started...
What did you think you'd be doing at 27? And what are you doing now?
So look, I grew up in the southern half of Odisha, in the Odisha-Andhra Pradesh border, where my parents' aspiration was long-term. If I worked for a good IT company, was an assistant system engineer there, I would have done really well in my life. So I think there, of course, I've had the good opportunity to do a lot more. So I had no expectations that I would get anywhere close. And that's the one thing I tell everybody, saying that आपको जो दिल में लगता है, if you really want to do something without caring about the outcome, I think that's the most important perspective among all the many things that can be done at this point of time. So my singular focus for the last 6 to 7 years has been that when I started this business, I saw that saaf suthra kamra at the right price at the right location was impossible to get. And my aspiration was, how do I ensure that we get good quality of spaces for consumers? And in the last 5 to 6 years, we've gotten so much love from consumers, partners, employees, and just the people of this country. I'm seeing messages as it goes. I think just the number of people that have given us love. I always say, before 94, 93 sort of time periods, the only good choice was to work in government companies or to potentially go somewhere international in the US or Europe to potentially consider opportunities. In this generation, for the first time, there is somebody who's young, has a dream, and wants to make a difference. People are willing to give them opportunities. People are willing to let them make mistakes and let them create a great impact in the years to come. So no, I had no expectation, but I'm truly very thankful and grateful for the opportunity that I've gotten so far.
Beautiful. I'm pretty sure you're aware of the fact that you're the poster boy for OYO. You're a big aspect of OYO's branding in general. So I'm not talking about Ritesh, the entrepreneur. I'm just talking about Ritesh, the guy, the man. Do you feel this level of pressure, one, for being the face, and two, for being the face of inspiration for like a whole generation? Because a lot of young kids who want to take up entrepreneurship study you, they study your mistakes, they study what you've done correctly. So what does that feel like at night when you're going to sleep? Do you feel any amount of pressure? Do you feel any amount of, I don't know, man, like any kind of negative emotion?
So look, I think to begin with, I'll answer these in three different parts. The first one is, I don't think of life as being any different from what I was as a 19-year-old wanting to start this business, being at a Barsati in South Ex, Masjid Mode in Delhi, and trying to get the first hotel started. I don't feel any different than that. उस समय भी कोशिश कर रहे थे to try and make a big difference. आज भी कोशिश कर रहे हैं, and I think that I will keep trying that for all the years to come. The second thing is, the love I have gotten, I'm very, very grateful to it. Matlab, when I started my first hotel and I had some problems, there were a bunch of customers who were all young. And all of them actually proposed that they would support me from their personal savings for setting up the business. That kind of love is unprecedented if you were to think about it. And the third is, it's not like I've only gotten love. Sometimes I've also gotten flack and criticism. But I have used those criticism always with a positive perspective to learn. मुझे लगता है कि if you get 100 things of love, if you don't get 4 flack, then maybe that love is not worth it. So I take all of those criticisms very constructively. उसे सीखने की कोशिश करते हैं, and I try to do better every day, and very focused in that direction.
What are you working towards? What's your end goal in life? At 50, what's your end goal?
Look, I think for me, every day, the only thing that I'm most focused on is to make sure that I feel happy about the job that I'm doing. I try to make a positive difference. And most importantly, that positive difference should make an impact in people's lives. I'm seeing, various messages in the comments like that of people saying, I use OYO for X, I use OYO for Y, and somebody saying that I don't like OYO for X. And I think all of those are incredible because we are able to, in this few years, been able to make an impact to millions of people across the world. Last year alone, 41 million लोगों ने OYO को use किया across the world. I think for me, that's the one thing that matters the most beyond anything else. So at 50, if I'm happy about the job I'm doing, I will keep doing this. I have no qualms. I have no aspirations to change.
So, we have to kind of address the elephant in the room here. A lot of people are wondering about, the COVID-19 situation, how it affected OYO. I know that you guys kind of spotted it before the wave actually took over the whole world. So, could you just like run us through what happened in your head when you realized, oh shit, this is happening? And at the same time, obviously, the hospitality industry would get affected in a big way. So, as the guy who started out this whole journey, what was going on in your head? And normal people, I feel a normal human, an aam aadmi would have probably panicked. I do believe that entrepreneurship kind of grinds your brain into having a higher level of mental fitness. So keeping that as an aspect, like what went on in your head when this whole situation was going on?
Sure. Look, I think first off, nobody in the world could have predicted that something like this would happen in our country, at least at this period of time, and the world at large, because the size of impact that this is having to the world is something that no recession, I would probably believe that only the World War II is anywhere close to what this situation is like. So, first off, I didn't know. I don't think anybody else knew about what was coming. We saw this for the first time in China, where we saw that there was a massive impact, and the whole, like a lot of provinces shut down and so on. And initially, we actually felt that this was going to be a China only effect, and all the rest of the businesses were doing okay. But very soon, in a month or two, around early part of March, we saw that there was a massive impact happening in every part of the world, where this was affecting individuals and human beings on a daily basis. For OYO, which is a travel and hospitality linked company, we were literally in the middle of the crisis. We were not even on the corners of the crisis, because with issues like the ones that are today, I think maybe the same city and the same state customers will continue to come to us, but the people who are traveling from one city to another, people are not going to be excited about getting on a plane when you know that there is such large amount of infections that are going on. So even before the lockdown, a lot of Indian airports had gotten like half empty. So our immediate response was making sure to reduce any expenses that we can reduce. So for example, we reduced our travel of employees, including myself. We reduced marketing expenses, capex, and so on. We looked at safety and security. We shared that whatever can be done to be ensuring great safety and security for our partners. So we sent, hundreds of thousands of masks to our hotels, sanitization liquids, consumer safety ecosystems, and so on. And then, unfortunately, very recently, we had to also, have some of our employees go on furloughs. But when that happened, we tried to ensure that we can bring back, and I'm committed to making sure that we can bring back as many of our team members as possible. But beyond that, every team member gets 100% healthcare, Medicare, their school children fees, and a lot of other things to ensure that our employees can see through these tough times. None of us can relate with how tough this situation is going to be, but for us, it's important to lead by example. So I and all our key leaders have almost taken 100% or 50% pay cuts to ensure that we are the first ones who are hurt before anybody else are.
But from a leadership perspective, what were your big learnings of this phase? Again, on a personal level, I'm not talking about the business side of things. On a personal level, what did you figure?
So, सबसे पहले, it's important to remember that there is so much going on across the world that it is very easy to be bogged down. बड़ी मुश्किल है. Every day you'll wake up and get lots of SOS messages saying this is a problem, that's a problem, and so on. The most important is to remain calm. Because in great days, जब सब चीजें बहुत अच्छी चल रही हैं, even then making hasty decisions is bad. And on the other hand, when there are troubles, it's important to also remain calm, because haste creates waste. So it's critical to enable that. So that's what has been my first focus, to be calm. Second, to be highly engaged, because it's very easy to get fatigued. When you're at home and you're seeing so many of negative news. For OYO team members, OYO's owners, and your customers, it's important that for all of them, there is some way of engagement. So we've tried every way of making sure that we can find ways of engagement with not just our employees. A lot of our team members stay with their parents, with their families, with their children. We've tried to engage with them as well. The third thing that I've learned is in these times, not only do people come together, people have a sense of serving the society. So a lot of OYO employees across India and across the world came together to also serve the society. For example, we recently contributed to various funds, and a lot of people think that OYO contributed to the fund. It's actually not OYO, it's actually our employees who put together contributions and said we as a group together would want to serve India and various other countries across the world. So मुझे लगता है कि this is an opportunity for people to come together and fight against this cause, and as our Prime Minister says, in it together. That's sort of what I've learned. The last thing that I've learned is this is also a great time to reflect, because in the last 2 years things were going so quickly for our company that this is the time to reflect and say what did we do right and what would we not do right, and hear from all our stakeholders, and at the end prepare for the future. That is, when the world opens up, consumers will want touch-free check-ins. Consumers will want highly sanitized and clean experiences. How do you prepare for all of those as the world comes back?
Got it. Beautiful, bro. I feel a lot of people look at you as a good blueprint for how an entrepreneur should grow a business, especially in this country. Completely self-made guy. I feel like you're someone who's a constant learner as well, which is it goes hand in hand with being an entrepreneur. And only because you're a constant learner, am I asking you this. You mentioned that in this phase, you understood what you did right and wrong. So could you take us through like the top 3 right things super fast and then the top 3 wrong things super fast in your whole journey till now?
Yeah, that's a very tough question. I think there are 3 things that I believe we did wrong. I will start with the wrong and then go to the right. So I think the 3 things that I could have done better is, 1, I could have focused that in bringing good quality talent sooner. It took me 1.5 or 2 years to be able to make sure that I start bringing high quality talent into the business. The second was ensuring that as our company grew, we should have taken a pause sooner and said, what are the 2 or 3 things we can improve? We did that at the end of last year, around December or January. We could have done it a few months before. And the third one, what I believe we could have done better is make sure that as OYO grew worldwide, we could have clarified about what are the key focus areas of our business, across various parts of the world, and ensure that not just the what, but the why is also communicated better. Now, coming to the part of what we did right. Before I begin that, because you talked about entrepreneurship and a lot of startups getting built, I believe this is the best time for people to build new companies. There is no better time than a crisis for companies to begin. I have read various news about people saying, don't start up now, there is a lot of risk, and so on and so forth. But it's critical to know that crisis के समय में सबसे बढ़िया companies बनती हैं. So the 3 learnings. Number 1, naivety is good. So a lot of times where you would be told that you got to be very smart, you got to learn about everything in the business. If I knew how hard building a company is, I would have probably never done that. Number 2 is making sure don't go after industries that everybody is chasing. Nowadays, I see that people see that there are 2 or 3 industries that are exciting and then everybody wants to go in that. Remember, the industry that nobody is looking at this point of time is the industry that's going to be very successful, but not just very successful. You can be the leader of that industry when the world comes back. My learning has been be the big fish in the small pond, not the small fish in the big pond. And third, and probably one of the things that I believe is going to help OYO survive this crisis is a great group of leaders I work with. In the history of our company, I have not lost the people who work with me, the senior leaders who I have brought in, and all the team members sort of constantly get inspired by them. They have not left, and they continue to stand together in these really tough times. So I believe that that's the third thing, that is, give respect to your colleagues who you work with, and if you let them do what they want to do, who are smart and who know their jobs, I think they will work a path to make sure that long term they're going to make you successful.
Amazing stuff, bro. What has the lockdown taught you about yourself? You, not OYO. Keep OYO on the side. And Ritesh, what's it taught you about yourself?
Lots of things, Ranveer. I think the first thing I have learned is video calls can really postpone lunches and dinners, because if you were at office, you could always take that 10-minute break for a lunch or so on. But if you're on back-to-back video calls, it's very hard to do. The second thing is, no matter, how much you think that deliveries and so on are working, and how many things you need, you can live with very little basic things around yourself. Minimalism is a good thing and it can work. And I would say the third thing is, I used to feel the only way I can get my job done is making sure that I'm in front of my team members, in front of my customers, and so on. I still feel so, but nowadays I feel that that's not the only way to do things. Maybe 70% of the things can be done by means of video sessions. So these are few learnings I have had. Beyond, I think nowadays there are a lot of mosquitoes. So I'm dealing with those. I don't know if others are seeing that, but it's just amazing how much pain it is dealing with that.
Yeah, generally there are a lot of insects. I was walking home that day, a massive spider fell on my back. Like I was buying some sabzi, and this huge spider fell on my back. I was like, okay, I think we're going back to the Stone Age slowly. Nature's just like kind of bloomed again. The next, see, again, there's a lot of young entrepreneurs watching this. People who actually want to get into the entrepreneurship space going forward, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds. And I feel there's always three things, okay, that entrepreneurs chase. One of three things. So either you chase money, like you want that lavish life, and there are a bunch of people out there like that. A lot of people even achieve that money and then stop. They don't care much about other stuff. The second is legacy. So say someone like a Steve Jobs, made his money, but then wanted to be remembered after he died. And the third thing people chase is impact. So you're clearly not in that first category. You're a mix of the two other categories, I feel. But in saying that, I'm definitely going to ask you more about the two other categories. My question's about the first category. Like, after you made it big, what do you spend on lavishly? Like, for yourself, again, how do you pamper yourself in any way? Or is it that minimalism mindset through and through?
Yeah, look, I think, first off, I believe that people who chase just money, that's not sustainable. Because invariably, you will crack in the tough times. I think COVID is a tough time. And I sort of relate it with sports. So, for example, back in the day, I didn't watch that match live, but I watched that later. Sachin Tendulkar playing in Sharjah in the middle of a crisis in the India-Pakistan match. I think those kind of tough times, unless you're fighting for impact, there is no way you're going to be able to fight those times. You're going to say that, why should I fight so hard? Let me just leave this thing so easy, because बहुत challenge hai. Why fight in this period? So I believe that chasing money is not the right thing for the long term. But funnily, if you don't chase money, the money comes to you. The second thing is about impact and legacy. I don't know about legacy. I think it's too early to chase legacy. I have a lot to prove and a lot to build. Honestly, I think हमें बहुत काम करना बाकी है. We haven't made it yet. But that said, I think impact is very critical, because that way, someday you're going to have better income. Someday you're going to make a lot of losses, but you can go back home thinking, consistency of impact to hai, that you're able to make such a big difference, and that will motivate you every day. It's hard to relate with it. And look, when I started the company, I used to think as well, listening to other entrepreneurs saying, look, this impact thing doesn't make sense. But over time, I think you realize this very quickly in those days when you realize that running that one hotel includes 20 things that could go wrong, and you still want to do it, and you ask yourself why I want to do it. Then you realize the only thing that you care about is making sure that you can make an impact. It feels sad when you see that one story when you were not able to make that impact, and you work harder, that inspires you in a positive way to say that next time on, you don't want that to happen again, and you want to make improvements.
Amazing, beautiful stuff. Again, you spoke about Sachin, you spoke about Sharjah. So somewhere there's still that little kid inside you who draws inspiration from the people you've grown up watching. Keeping that thought in mind, I want to ask you two people from the world of business and two people outside the world of business that you draw motivation from. Actually, give me 3 or 4 people outside the world of business and 2 business idols.
Sure. Look, I think I have talked a lot of times about the idols in the business world. The leading one is actually Bill Gates. The reason I believe so is because he built a great business, but at the same time, people will remember him for ages after him because he did so good for the world. He eradicated malaria by means of various medicines that he brought in. Right now, in the period of COVID, he's building factories even before the vaccines are found, saying that once the vaccines are found, the production will be harder. I think that is just incredible for somebody to do. A lot of people think that I say that because I believe he's been able to make a lot of income, but I believe it's more because he has been able to do such a good job for the world after building a good business as well. And along with him, he has a fantastic leader in Satya, who's the CEO of Microsoft and creating massive impact. Partly he's our fellow Indian who's done so well across the world. The second person I find who's very interesting back here in India is actually Uday Kotak. Some people might have known that Kotak was a bank which was earlier called Kotak Mahindra Bank and eventually became Kotak Bank. He's a first generation entrepreneur, started his business and then built it into being one of the leading banks in India. Did not inherit anything. So I think that's the second business person I'm very inspired by in India, and lives with a set of values which is very inspirational. I think outside the business world, there are quite a few of them, but let me try and give 2 examples. I think one of them I mentioned about, I think, from the area of sports is Sachin Tendulkar. I think he's a classic. He's made such a big impact in the area of sports. He's been no nonsense. He started his life young. He got criticism all through his life, saying, you're doing it for your own self. Why are you trying to do this? And so on. But nobody can ignore that he's a classic, a match winner, somebody who took India and Indian sport to a level that nobody else can relate with. So I get very inspired by him. The other person I'm very inspired by, and again, I think someone who a lot of people are inspired by is our Indian Prime Minister. I think the way he grew from being, from being from this little town in Gujarat to being the most influential and impactful person in the world, I think is incredible. And for me personally and my family, he's become an inspiration since the day my parents thought that I was doing something wrong. And he came on live television and said in Startup India event that Ritesh को देखकर मुझे ये लगता है कि एक चाय वाले ने होटल चेन का विचार क्यों नहीं किया. My parents felt I must be doing something right to be doing this job. One generation back, if you started a company, people said that you may be failed in school. उसलिए आपको काम खुद का करना पड़ रहा है. In this generation, we have a leader of this country who's willing to inspire young entrepreneurs by saying that If you're able to start a company and give job to even 5 people, you've done a good job. So I think those would be the two inspirations, and they are they're personal stories that inspire me about each one of them.
Amazing stuff, bro. Coming back to the slightly business side of things, what's your viewpoint on business opportunities after the COVID-19 situation is done? If say someone were to take away OYO rooms from you completely and you still had the same mindset, you're starting from the ground up, what industries would you look at and say, okay, that's something I can do, that's something you should do, that's something, people should do, should build things in? What would be those industries for you?
So look, I think in the new problems that are emerging are very, very interesting. Let me share some examples of those. People will go back to stores or shops. Social distancing will be key. So how do you use cameras which are able to predict what basic social distancing should remain? There's a technology opportunity in that. How do you create ability for people? Generally houses are small houses in India, especially people who live in paying guests, or various other kind of accommodations, which are small locations. I think there it is critical that people are able to create experiences where people can work from home. Anything that's linked to delivery, anything that's linked to gaming, anything that's linked to education over internet, all of those opportunities will grow dramatically. So consensus is anything that you use technology for will rapidly increase. Personally, if somebody were to take OYO away from me, given a chance, I will build OYO again, because I genuinely believe that humans are social beings. They will travel no matter what. And I hope to make sure that when they travel, they get good quality spaces at lowest prices in the years to come. So I would do the same thing, but I would recommend others to consider every opportunity, including hotels and travel, because nobody is looking at travel. If you consider travel, I'm confident that long-term your business will also be successful.
So you're an entrepreneur, so is the guy at the Kinara store, okay? Now, if in your shop, you start losing your customers, because of the whole COVID-19 situation, how does that shopkeeper's mindset change? Because that's what's happening right now with the hospitality industry in general. So when there's no one actually that's coming to touch your product, what does an entrepreneur do? Because you've spent all your life and energy building out this beautiful consumer experience, and now there's no one to use it. So what are you doing? What are the team members at OYO doing right now? What's your ground staff doing?
Sure. I think, you can think about it both as a combination of short-term and long-term. One of the interesting messages I recently saw from Rajesh Sani, who runs Inner Chef, was that when the fishermen can't go fishing to the sea, they repair their nets. So this is the time to repair our net, to make sure that if our customers are not getting a good experience in some forms, improve it. Be the best for the customer when the world comes back. If we have some places in technology that we can make improvements, let's fix that. Be the best technology company we can be. And anything else around those. In the short term, try and serve people in every manner possible. So over 30 hospitals in India, we are serving the frontliners. Over 20 embassies across the world, the foreigners and people who are stranded in India, we are getting them good places to live in. So whatever basic places we can enable people, the basic reasons people can come and stay with us, we will try to serve them. But the primary focus is to repair the nets so that when the sea is calm and we go fishing, we are the best fishing boat on the sea.
I love that answer. Okay, I have two last personal questions for you. One is that something a lot of people are actually asking in the comment section, which is your whole experience of the Thiel Fellowship. And I don't just take us over it, because there's a lot of people here who don't know about it. So can you just explain it very briefly for that young kid who's watching this somewhere who might also apply? and how did that help you in life? So introduce us to it and then take us through your experience, take us through the outcome and what you learned from that phase.
Sure. The Thiel Fellowship is run by Peter Thiel, who's the founder of PayPal and was successful in building a great management team, who's eventually called the PayPal Mafia, who have all built billion-dollar plus companies. And of course, he was the first investor in Facebook. I got to know about Peter Thiel from a very interesting perspective. I saw Peter Thiel for the first time in the movie The Social Network when I was still in my senior high school.
Okay.
I saw him on the movie and I felt how amazing would it be if I ever get the opportunity to meet him. I start searching about him and then I find the Thiel Fellowship website and I apply. Before me, there was no other Asian resident who had become a Thiel Fellow. There were, of course, Asians in the US who had become Thiel Fellows. So मुझे लगा हमारा तो होना नहीं है. But the application process was very exciting. So I still applied. I got a bunch of interview calls. There were interviews from senior leaders at Facebook, Twitter, and so on. So I was just getting excited to meet those people, even though in my heart I had no expectation of getting accepted. One day I get this call saying, 4 days later, here is your flight ticket to come to the US. And out of the 40 people, 20 people would get selected to become a Thiel Fellow. I was amazed. I was so thankful to have that opportunity. I applied, and of course, went to the US. I was this was the first international flight I could get on. It was the first time I used my passport, which means I did not even go to Nepal before that. But it was an incredible experience, and I'm thankful that I became one of the earliest Thiel Fellows. It was an incredible experience because for the first time, I got exposed to such incredibly smart people across the world. In fact, this morning I found that one of the other Thiel Fellows who started a company called Figma Design, raised a $50 million round at $2 billion at a tough time like now. One of the Thiel Fellows built Ethereum. So incredible quality of people, and I was thankful to be a part of those group of people. I think over a period of time, my focus has been how do I constantly create, an impact which is equivalent to the kind of impact that Thiel Fellows were able to create. It helped me from the perspective of exposure. It helped me to learn from incredible business people and entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley. And it helped me to get introduced to some incredible people in the sector of business. But that said, when I came back to India to go sign the second hotel, reality hit me again. When I realized the second hotel owner doesn't care whether you're a Thiel Fellow, whether Silicon Valley entrepreneurs know you. He only cares about mujhe chokha munafa kitna hoga. So I think you can learn from the fellowship, but at the end, when you build your business, you have to have the reality check that you have to start from ground zero all over again. But incredible learning experience, and I highly insist upon folks to consider applying to the Thiel Fellowship if you're young and if you want to make a big difference.
Amazing stuff. Okay, actually, I had one last question from you from my end. I'm going to make it 2 more questions because I read a very interesting question in the comment section, which is that what were 3 movies that had an incredible amount of impact on your mindset? Like the guy you are today, what were 3 movies that have somewhere played a role in shaping that up?
Oh, wow. There are quite a few. But let me go one after the other. I think the one classic movie that I can imagine, would have moved entrepreneurs across the world would be, I think it's called the Parrots of the Silicon Valley or something like that. So that's one. It's a documentary, very interesting documentary, which talks about how how Silicon Valley and of course Apple got created. I think the second one, which is very interesting, is The Men Who Built America. It's not a movie, it's a series of documentary on the History Channel. it tells crisis से लोग कैसे निकलते हैं. A lot of people don't know or don't think about it that way. That sometime, like many years back, US was a civil war-striven country and a poor nation. And Europe was number one. But US it was civil war-striven and it had low resources. But fantastic entrepreneurs like that of Vanderbilt, Andrew Carnegie, JP Morgan, Henry Ford, they set up new businesses and changed US into becoming a world leader. Same with most other countries, saying whenever there are big challenges, entrepreneurs take the lead, young people take the lead, they fight and they lead the world going forward. And I think that's the second story. And I think the third is very interesting. That is our very Indian movie Guru that a lot of people would have seen and would have, it just tells how, a young business person becomes, so successful over a period of time, seeing through all the problems that they see. But these are three examples.
Beautiful stuff. Says a lot about you. What about books? Like if you had to go back to a 17-year-old Ritesh who's starting out OYO, what were 3 books you'd put in his hand and say, ye pad, ye ab pad. Read it as fast as you can.
Oh, wow. I think number 1, The Hard Things About Hard Things. Great book, great opportunity to learn from. The second one is 0 to 1. I saw those in comments, like every 5 comments, 0 to 1 showed up. So I think goes without saying. The third one, I think I would make it 4 because somebody asked me to talk about Odisha, so I'll talk about that. I think the third one is a story. Is this book, which is the biography of Elon Musk. I think what an incredible biography that is. I have gone through that probably 3 times now. What an incredible book. The last one, I think I grew up in Odisha and somebody asked me to talk about Odisha. It's not really a book, but these are stories of Madhu Babu. Who's, Madhusudan Das was one of the most successful, in those days, barristers and probably the first entrepreneurs from Odisha and did extremely well back in the day. So I think learned quite a bit from there.
Amazing. And if you were to write a book, what would the core message of that book be? One message that you want to put out. Like you, obviously, I'm sure you'll put in all your learnings and your, character building tips. But that one core message, what would it be?
So look, like I said earlier, I have to do a lot more to be able to write a book. बहुत सीखना बाकी है. But if I were to write a book from my life experience, that would be never give up. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. The one thing about me that I feel good about, and at the risk of looking somebody who's too proud, is no matter how many times I am pushed back or no matter how many times I fall down, I will stand up and go harder at the same aspiration than ever before. I won't give up. That's the one thing that I believe is an important skill set for entrepreneurs, saying there will be 100 people who will want to push you down and there will be many reasons for it. But to the extent your heart is in a good place, you have right values and you have right intent, I think you can get back at it and get back to fighting. And I think that's the one thing that I'm focused upon.
Amazing stuff, man. I am going to ask you a slightly controversial question. And that's only because I feel like the world of social media, always we have the same question running through a lot of social media influencers' minds. We're often asked, how do you deal with online hate? How do you deal with online trolling? Now, in the life of an entrepreneur, especially an entrepreneur who's a mainstream brand like you have to deal with both online barrage of hey, Ritesh Agarwal this, Ritesh Agarwal that. And I'm sure in your real life also, you have to deal with that to a degree. So again, I'm not asking the founder of OYO Rooms, I'm just asking Ritesh, as a person, what do you do in your own head? How does your own head process that kind of input of negative data. Because honestly, it happens at every stage of a human's life. You know, even in school, you have like bullies, or you have people who probably coming from negative family backgrounds who only know how to spew hate. So that the world does have 10-20% of those people. So what's your big learning from dealing with that kind of a situation?
Yeah, look, I learned this the hard way very early. I think I was 18 or 19 when, for the first time, I saw both online and mainstream negativity towards myself. And I think that really taught me a lesson back in the day. That is, if you're willing to work hard, 10, 20, 30, 40 years later, if you're able to make a positive difference, people are willing to give you that time. But for the next 20 to 30 years, people will keep pushing back on you. Think about like Bill Gates. There are documentaries. There's a documentary called Bill Gates on Netflix. I would highly recommend you to look at it. How much criticism he faced, or how much criticism best founders across the world has faced. Usme to matlab I run a hotel company. So it is very important to appreciate and recognize that there will be hate, and you need to appreciate that ye to rehne hi wala hai. But second, remember, there is a lot of love. People ignore that for one hate, there are 100 positive, love that comes, and I'm very thankful for that. And number three is that among the hate, 80% is noise, but 20% is feedback. So a lot of people just switch off hate. I actually objectively read all the hate that comes, and usse मैं कोशिश करता हूँ कि are there 20% things that I can do better? I will take that and do a better job, so that in 3 years there will be new hate, and that new hate I will take and do a better job for the next 3 years, and I'll keep improving.
Do you have any kind of low days at all? Every young entrepreneur does. I don't know if you count yourself as a young entrepreneur anymore. I mean, knowing the kind of humble guy you are, I'm sure you'll say, I still am young, a long way to go. And I understand that. And that is that's the core mindset I feel every entrepreneur should have. But even now, when you're experienced as a businessman, do you still have days where you are low? Like, and by low, I don't mean you want to give up. I know that's not a part of your character. I mean, say things like self-doubt, things like fear, things like second-guessing, things like regret. Do those emotions creep into your head?
Yeah. Look, I think, by the way, one of the things that I was going to tell earlier and I missed out is that one of the opportunities which is doing really well is, if you can, motivate people digitally. And I think you're a great inspiration at that. So I think a lot of people should consider motivating people digitally or sharing their personal stories with people as an opportunity. That's going to be a big opportunity going forward. Coming back, personally, there's a very simple perspective in life, that is, an entrepreneur's job or a life is a roller coaster. In 5 minutes, you can go from seeing great things like a great message saying, gosh, we just won this great deal and it's going to make a big difference. But 5 minutes later, you will hear from one customer in Mexico saying, I didn't have a good experience, and you will have a very low time saying, मैंने क्या गलती करी जिससे कि that customer could not have had a bad experience. I think that roller coaster is every day. तो उसमें self-doubt, questioning, challenges, high, low, सारी चीजें feel होती हैं. But I try to be calm and consistent as much as I can. But as you know, there are all these emotions that come along. I think being around people who genuinely have a sense of trying to make a positive difference for myself and my company around me, who are honest to me, who don't have to say just good things. They can challenge me, they can question me, they can be very harsh to me. Really helps me quite a bit to make sure that I can keep myself consistent.
Amazing stuff. So here's what I think of you, and this is the first time I'm talking to you, in person. I do believe that you definitely have a very strong warrior mindset somewhere inside your heart, like where you're the kind of person who will fight it out, but not violently, not aggressively. You're kind of a detached warrior. Something like a Sachin, actually, I'd say. You know, Sachin also had that fighter mentality, but from a very kind of withdrawn, calm perspective. So my question to you is not about the warrior perspective, because I'm sure that's all the books you've read, the movies you've seen, the quotes you've read. I'm asking you about the other side of things, the calm stuff. Where does that come from? Do you meditate? Do you have like spirituality in your life? Is it your upbringing in Odisha? Is it your family values? How are you being so calm through this? Not everyone is, not everyone in your position would have even agreed to come out on a public platform in the middle of a situation that's affecting your industry so heavily. And you're still holding a smile on your face, you're having a normal brotherly conversation. Where's that calm coming from? Because it's coming from some deeper place than just your books and movies.
I think it comes from two places, right? I think the first one is just the amount of trust people have laid on me. Like you yourself said, there is trust from young entrepreneurs who say that, Ritesh, we want you to make a difference. There's trust from customers. There are 40,000 plus people who are getting business, who were getting business from us. Last year, we funneled $3 billion through their bank accounts. My families and relatives, my neighbors, so many people who have put trust in me, that I feel that I can't make that trust happen or that impact happen if I'm not calm. The second is the values come from your upbringing. The town I grew up in, this is a little town with very limited aspirations of people, right? So, for example, if somebody got a job in an IT company, पूरे शहर में लड्डू बंटते थे. If somebody went to a good college, the whole town will know about it. So in life, the amount of aspirations and the values that you grow up with were very simplistic. And the problems you see around yourself are dramatic. Like the town I come from, over 70% people are from below poverty line. So once you've seen, again, I'm thankful. My parents actually had a small shop, so we were actually doing relatively better than most other people in the little town. But the problems that you see in real life are so much smaller than the problems that you have to deal with as an entrepreneur. So I think the upbringing from Odisha, and as well a combination of the trust and belief so many people have put in me. I take that very, very seriously.
Amazing stuff. So I actually have maybe 1,000 more questions to ask you, because I feel you're one of the most solid mindsets I've come across. But in saying that, I know what it's like as an entrepreneur dealing with your own tasks for the day. That's why we will call it a day when it comes to this live stream. I do want to do a full-blown podcast with you, because there's a lot of people who are requesting that on this live stream itself, where they want to see us in the same room, you on the YouTube channel, on the Ranveer Show. So I am looking forward to that day. But my final question that I'm going to ask you in this live stream is, at this stage of your life, in the middle of the whole COVID-19 situation, but also generally speaking, not specific to this situation, what's the best and worst aspect of your life right now?
I think two things. The best aspect in life, again, I'm trying to think about it on the go, but I think the best aspect in life is having the opportunity to be able to make a big difference once the world comes back, and being able to plan through it. I feel very thankful that I have that opportunity. But on the other hand, the worst aspect is not knowing what's going to happen next. I don't know how many cases are going to happen, which countries will respond in the way they will, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be a challenge. So those are the two perspectives. Ranveer, I think your story is incredible. Next time we do a podcast, I'd like to have the opportunity to ask you a few questions as well.
I'd always love to, man.
I hope I can also talk about how the world after COVID looks like, what was fighting the COVID like, and hopefully I and each member of our company who's fighting COVID will have stories to tell at that point of time. Thank you so much for having me on your show in these really tough times. And I'm very thankful to you and all your viewers to be so patient with me.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. God bless you, man. Just keep being that detached warrior that you are. You're an inspiration to all entrepreneurs of all ages in India, and I mean that. Like everything, like ignore what the haters are saying, man. I know it's a very cliched thing to say, but just from one bro to another, just keep going because your story is teaching people a lot. And whether it's the hate you get, the mistakes you make, all the right things you do, all the correct mindsets you have, we're all learning from you every day. So just keep going, man.
Thank you, Ranveer. I really appreciate it.
God bless you, bro. Have fun.
Have a good one. Bye bye.